Bueno, bienvenidos a otro evento de Under the Volcano. Welcome to another event of Under the Volcano 2026. And this time I have to thank the Posal Teposteco for giving us the use again of this room. And I hope you'll hold up well, that you're not too feeling much like sardines here. We predicted an audience of 30, and you're clearly pushing 50. Some of us have already left that number behind. Anyway, welcome, bienvenidos. Les quiero explicar un poco hoy lo que se pretende hacer. Va a haber tres conversaciones, dos en inglés y en medio una en español. Today, we're actually sort of debuting or piloting a new format, and the idea of this is to showcase our faculty in a way that we haven't done before by putting together pairs of our writers who do similar but not exactly identical things as writers. So it's a bit performative. There's a moderator for each conversation. And, it's a sort of interesting new, what could one say? A way of organizing things. So there's three conversations that are separate. There'll be a little break between, maybe 5 minutes, but, obviously, the notion is that it's a single event in 3 parts. Pretend you're going to the theater, 3 acts. So we're here, not only in this whole residency, to pursue our individual genres. I hope it's okay if I speak this way back and forth between both languages. Everyone's, more or less? Bueno. But we're also pushing the boundaries, pushing the edges of things. At least in my mind, as the founder of Under the Volcano, it's what I aspire to in my own writing, which is fiction, but has also been journalism, and a lot of literary translation. So looking for the challenges that are worth it. Otherwise, why are we doing any of this? And I would like to believe also we're surprising ourselves in order to maybe surprise our readers. And all of you that are here for these 2 weeks as writers, you know that you're working with people whose own writing over their careers is original, interesting, focused, and often quite diverse in what they embrace. So I'm going to say what Sheree said, thinking about this in advance, that we're not just here to look at craft, but also, as she says, to witness how 3 sets of master writers rearrange the stars of our imagination. And as the person who's put this program together over many years, I very much want that notion of rearranging the stars to embrace journalism as much as the creative forms of literature. Because I think our journalism program looks to see where the limits are and go beyond them. And those of you that are in Omero's workshop this week, last week and next week, you know that. The projects are ambitious, and they take you into investigations that you might not have thought of if you hadn't been brought into this company. And so that's the idea of this set of 3 conversations. Whatever genre you are writing, you're going to be listening in on conversations that are not necessarily within your genre, but some will be, okay? So I think, wow, it's so dry here in the dry season, isn't it? I'm going to be brief in the introductions because with a tiny bit of bio, in case some of you don't know who these people are, if you want to look further, the longer bios are on the Under the Volcano website, and then, of course, you can all navigate and make your way across Google and find out more, and hopefully read their work. So the first of these series has been titled The Architects of the Marvelous, and I would just say we're going to be welcoming Alberto Chimal from Mexico, paired with Sheree Renée Thomas from Memphis, Tennessee in the United States. And in brief, in terms of bios, for those who don't know, Alberto Chimal is a prolific novelist, short story writer, and essayist. He's also known as one of this country's pioneers of experimental and online narrative, a frequent anthologist pay attention to these words, and cultural columnist. He also maintains a literary YouTube channel with writer Raquel Castro, aquí, yeah, and contributes to numerous Mexican literary journals. Not all science fiction writers, in which I include you, though it's not all you do, are anthologists, but in fact, both Alberto Chimal and Sheree Renée Thomas are known very much for anthologizing and for editing. Sheree is an award-winning fiction writer, poet, and editor. Her work, as she describes it, is inspired by myth and folklore, natural science, and the Mississippi Delta conjure. The author of 3 collections of fiction, she serves as the editor of the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, and is the associate editor of Obsidian. She edited the groundbreaking anthologies Dark Matter. She must have been 12 when she did it. It's a classic, a century of speculative fiction from the African diaspora, as well as another recent anthology. So again, I'm really collapsing these things. All of our participants today have pretty vast CVs, and I urge you to go further. But our moderator for today is Aysegül Savas. She's the author of the novels Walking on the Ceiling, White on White, and The Anthropologist, as well as a collection of short stories that just came out, and a short work of nonfiction. Her fiction appears regularly in The New Yorker, and her books have been translated into 6 languages, or probably 10 by this week. So, I'm going to step off the stage here and welcome Alberto Chimal, Sheree Renée Thomas. ¿Dónde está Sheree? Ahí. And Aysegül, please take it over from me. What was I drinking out of this one?
Thank you, Magda. Hello, everyone. Sheree and Alberto, it's such a pleasure to welcome you. I have so much admiration for both the breadth and the courage of your imaginations. And I just want to start our conversation by asking you about this idea of rearranging the stars and the possibilities of speculation. What are the freedoms that speculation affords you when you're not tied to some of the rules of reality? And I'm also wondering whether this freedom can in fact be a way to examine reality in a more authentic manner. Who should I ask?
Okay. Thank you, Aysegül. Hello, everyone. I think we are always writing in a way from reality because we have bodies and we inhabit a certain context socially and even politically, but using the imagination to go beyond what can be described as the everyday or the real lets us do lots of different things, among them precisely to rethink what we experience while we live in a certain reality, because there are experiences that one has each and every day that cannot be represented or quantified or literally put into words. And then what we do is to transform those experiences, those inner experiences, into symbols and metaphors and snippets of plot that become the stories that we make. All these kinds of literature of the speculative, the imagination, however we may want to call them, they represent, I think, not how does it look like to live in a certain present, in a certain age, but on the contrary, how does it feel like to live here, to be here and now, and we can represent it and also question it, criticize it in that way.
Thank you. I think it's a really wonderful form to explore. Almost, I think all artists, whether you're a musician or a dancer or a journalist or a person who does biographies, all of us speculate in one way or another. You're always asking, what if? And if this goes on, what happens? But for speculative fiction writers or fabulists or the writers of the marvelous, real, whatever genre you want to call it, the answers are not limited to what we consider as reality, or what we agree and disagree and debate as reality. I'll say that. The genre allows you to really interrogate and excavate what it is that we consider normal in our communities. And it can be on a very personal level. It could be on a familial level, right? Very regional or national. And I think that's why I love the genre so much and why it has been such a consistent aesthetic for me. Because I know whether I want to explore environmental racism, whether it was the oil in the Mississippi River or the supercomputer and its vast absorption of all of our resources, including our thousands of year beautiful secret to youth water that we have in Memphis. I can explore it in a genre that not only treats science or known science as a kind of movable feast, right, that I can extrapolate and expand upon or zoom in on in any way that I choose, as long as it's credible and as long as it's persuasive, which is kind of the rules for all writing, right? If you're writing a biography or a new personal mythography of yourself, I've got to believe it, right? You've got to make me believe it. And so we're using very similar tools and handling the craft in similar ways, except what we get to do with it will blow your mind. So yeah.
I just want to follow up on this idea of what is normal. And I think one of the very powerful aspects of speculation is that it can be a lens to, dismantle injustice, because you're able to give voice, or you're able to therefore give power to marginalized points of view. So I wondered whether you could talk about how you see your work as navigating the world, but also imagining a different possible future for it.
I'll just be quick on this one. Normal, a lot of my work, and this is inspired by Octavia Butler, features on Black women and girls. Right? And I didn't know, as a reader of science fiction, as a fan of it, I didn't even know that people in my family could be the heroes or the protagonists in science fiction stories. Because, I saw Uhuru, right? We saw her, but I didn't really take it in a personal way on the page. So when I think about normal, the normal script for Black women and girls, no matter what culture it seems, is one of struggle, is one of being marginalized, of one of being gaslit constantly, of one as being seen as an easy target, as a juicy target, as someone who doesn't have protection, right? They're not lifted up universally. And I've traveled the world. My writing has taken me everywhere, except Antarctica. And if I write big enough grant, I could probably go there too. But when I think about it, that's a norm. And what I try to do in some of my stories, not all of them, some of them are a bit dystopic, a bit apocalyptic, even though we're all living through the apocalypse now. I think I try to challenge what that normal script is. And I give these characters agency. Like, I'm thinking about how reproduction, for example, is treated as a commodity, as something that needs to be corporatized, and also eugenics as well. The policy of, you can reproduce if it's going to be profitable to us, but if it's not, and if you're going to challenge our balance and not our population, then we got to change that, right? And so I wrote a story a long time ago that was called "Mary, Mary, Don't You Weep," and I had a sense of urgency. I just want to say that about science fiction. We have a sense of urgency because the science keeps changing and our understanding of it keeps changing, and society and its values change and don't change at the same time. So the early drafts of that story, which is now called Motherlode in Mojo Rhythm in the collection that just came out, is completely different because now reproduction for Black women is weaponized in such a way that's so similar to the chattel slavery, right? But it's different because of technology, right? So the things that I was imagining have actually come to pass. And some of the laws that have happened, unfortunately, are coming to pass. And so what it was normal changed, and then it became normal again. And so I have to try to write to resist the normalization of dangerous things that do terrible things to people.
Here in Mexico, for many, many years, there were no significant apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic histories. After some brief flourishing in the 1980s, during which there were many short stories talking about very bleak scenarios of global catastrophe, there was nothing until very recently. And I think that has much to do with another version of this normalization of ideas of oppression, maybe not overt oppression, but there's also the oppression that comes from learning that some things, some thoughts, some ways of living are beyond you, and you are not entitled to have them. For example, for many years, there was basically no pushback here in Mexico against this idea that comes very naturally in global corporate media that says that the end of the world will basically happen in New York or Los Angeles or maybe Germany or London sometimes, you know. And the only way someone could survive such catastrophe would be living there, especially if they were white and male. To give you one example, many of you will remember Interstellar, this movie by Christopher Nolan, in which there's one African-American character, and he dies at the middle, and the whole of humanity is reduced to a kind of picket fence white village in space. It would be bad enough if we didn't think that everyone else outside the US has not a right even to appear on screen in that movie. So the situation is changing, at least a little here in Mexico, and that some other places in Latin America too, because we are starting to question if it is normal at all to consider that the future is only closed to a certain demographic, so to speak. Several people here, including myself, have been writing in recent years short stories and novels that deal with those kinds of apocalyptic scenarios, but they are stated, so to speak, in a different manner, starting from the fact that these stories are set here in different places in Mexico. I myself. No, ya está. Gracias. That was me being nervous. I'm fidgeting with the button. I'm sorry. The novel I wanted to tell you about very, very briefly is called Night at the M Zone, La Noche en la Zona M, and it has to do with a post-apocalyptic civilization that rises in what's left of Mexico City many years from now, and many of the problems that such a community or groups of communities have to deal with in order to survive. And one of the first ones was that since we don't have easy access to firearms here in Mexico, there won't be any rousing shootouts like the ones you may find in Walking Dead or any such show or story, and also that since the cause of the apocalyptic scenario was a climate catastrophe and then a series of protracted wars and conflicts for resources, there are also no open bodegas or stores full with canned foods like the ones you may have in those other stories. So we are trying to reshape an idea or to create an alternate idea of the future based on social and economic and cultural conditions that are not those that we are used to see on our TV screens or to read in books in translation that are, of course, much more prevalent simply because the countries that produce them have much more money than we do, but they are locking us out of their visions of the future and out of our own visions of the future. So that's an ongoing effort by many people to open those locks.
I want to ask you, as Magda mentioned, you're both editors and teachers. And I want to ask how that type of reading particularly has changed your approach to your own work and to your own writing.
It's made me harder on my own work. It's made me look at my work more critically and really think more deeply about what kind of reader I am, I think. And also, when you're editing, I guess it depends on the project you're working on. Like with an anthology, I get to go into what I call my squirrely mode and dive into another dimension or whatever of what I like, right? And so that whole anthology is work that I love, 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 love. And all the weirdness that I love and all the other things, all of that's in there, right? For a magazine, I have a more expansive point of view. I realize that even though technically for an anthology, I'm not supposed to be the only reader, right? That's how I edit it, though. It's things that I love. Because if I don't love it, then why would you love it, right? But for a magazine, especially something like FNSF, which was founded in 1949, or a peer-reviewed literary journal like Obsidian, which was founded during the Black Arts Movement in 1975, when I was 3, I have to think about the larger audience besides my own aesthetics. And I have to think about people who have been supporting these publications for years and years and years, and what it is that they love. And it's the sense of wonder. It's not only just the extrapolation and the kind of minutia that we get into with science fiction and fantasy, the world building and everything, but it's also the delight of the page, the word, beautiful language, prose, strong sentences, clean sentences, great persuasive storytelling, wonderful pacing. So when you have to analyze that and determine, like for FNSF, I was getting between 1,200 and 1,800 short stories and novelettes and novellas a month. So there's a very, very finite number of pages where print publication, and that's a challenging state to be in right now, to be a print publication in the world today. And it's not easy. So you have to distinguish between stories that you really love or really like, and then the stories that you think your larger audience is also going to like, but also the best of those, and sometimes not even just always the best of those, but the most original ones, right? So I can have 100, I don't know, AI stories or, biological, clone stories or something like that, right? I Sing the Body Electric, or any number of fairy tale retellings you can imagine, and Greek mythology and all that, from every culture you can think of. But how do I choose the one that's going to be published in this particular issue? And is it in conversation with the other stories that I have to choose? So that's constantly making me redefine and reimagine what it is that I think it's great storytelling, and whether or not I think it's going to be memorable and if it's going to last.
Amen to that. Yes, I mean, I'm not an editor. I'm an anthologist, and I think that I think you have always to be on the lookout for that new kind of imagination, that new kind of invention, that also that turn of phrase, that interesting glimpse into another person's mind through their style, through their way of plotting and pacing. This is true, I mean, for every kind of work in which one is mainly a reader and maybe a critical or close reader. And it's also especially true when you are like working in a workshop or a class environment, because I think it's very important to keep in mind that one is not passing down some kind of eternal knowledge to the people you're working with. You are accompanying them to make their own discoveries, and you are facilitating maybe those certain kinds of provisional truths, ideas that may or may not last, but that they are like useful signposts in each and every one of the writers' paths towards writing what they need to write. I think that's why also one who works as a teacher can learn a lot from their students. This is a two-way process, and this is a process for us, a process of discovery and rediscovery. We are, I think, always in danger of getting too set in our own ways, to hardened in our own convictions, and talking with different people, with younger people, which will be mostly the case for many of us from now on. It's always enriching, it's always illuminating, it's always humbling as well, because many of the things that we have to learn mean that we have also to unlearn many things. But that's a way for us to keep ourselves not only alive, but capable of surprise and wonder and renewal in many ways.
Oh, okay. No final question. Thank you. I just want to, for my students who are in this room, what Alberto just said about the provisional signposts, please, engrave that in your minds. Best words about teaching ever. And thank you so much for your wisdom and for your words.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.